Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very excited to welcome John Raphael to the podcast today to talk
Thank
about
you so much
kind
for
of an
having me.
obscure film on the podcast. Hammersmith is Out, but this gives us the opportunity, this one and only time on Film at 50, to talk about Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton in a film together. How are we doing, John?
We're doing good. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, you couldn't have picked a more obscure film. I like to do a deep dive. I know Elizabeth Taylor, I know Richard Burton, I know their big works together, but I had never heard of Hammersmith is Out. And so when I started looking for it, I kept writing Hammerstein, and I kept getting so many Google hits for Oscar and Hammerstein or Rogers and Hammerstein.
Right, yep.
And I was like, what is this? What is this film? What is this adventure I'm about to go on? And it's been a fun adventure. So thank you.
Yeah, this is not one of their better known movies, but as I said to you before we started recording, I really wanted to do one episode about these two together. And after this, they do one TV movie in 73, and that's it. Because they had like a weird relationship in that they were married twice, and so they were acting in a lot of films together throughout the 60s. Like I think 67, they're in like 2 or 3 films together. They did a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But by the early 70s, it was kind of drying up. And it's actually kind of sad to see their careers in the 70s are not at their peak, right?
No, that's what I was going to say. It seems like they were both kind of winding down in the 70s. Kind of crazy because they were, Elizabeth especially was relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
Had the longevity of a Meryl Streep even, but
right.
Things happen. And so I don't advocate for, couples working together. I don't we have many success stories where it works out. You see Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck actually just got engaged. So, again,
that's right.
So maybe it does work out, but then you have, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't seem like a recipe for success, I'll say. And it wasn't for them.
Yeah, they were engaged when Geely came out, right? In the summer of 03. And then their engagement ended soon after. So I think they're smart enough to know this time, don't act together in anything. Right?
Don't act together. Don't know how Richard and Elizabeth did 12 films together, but hey, sometimes it works.
Yeah, this was the 11th of 12 movies that they made together. It occasionally works out. I think John Krasinski and Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place was really good casting. Like they worked well off each other in that. And I think him being behind the camera might have helped there too. Sure. But I think you're right. I think like 90% of the time, I'd say not a good idea to work together.
Other big example of that would be Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Really had the most successful sitcom of all time, but their marriage didn't survive much longer after that. So I don't know. Sometimes you got to pick love or your career, but.
Well, I feel like if Liz and Dick, can we call them Liz and Dick? I think there's a TV movie with Lindsay Lohan as Elizabeth Taylor. I think the title of it is Liz and Dick or something.
That's what the media called them. I'm being professional today, so Sir Richard. Okay.
Burton and Taylor. I feel like if they had made like just 2 films together and like one was at the beginning and one was at the end, you could kind of be like, oh yeah, they probably weren't getting along by the end, but clearly making 12 movies together, and their relationship lasted from the early 60s to the mid 70s. It didn't seem to affect them negatively very much, right?
Who knows? From everything that I've heard, including the Lindsay Lohan Lifetime movie that you just referenced, it seems like they had a pretty wild love affair, like one of those romances burns really bright, and you're kind of attracted to the drama of each other.
Yeah.
And a lot of fighting too. So I don't know.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And I'm excited to get into this movie today and talk about their performances. Before we get to the movie, since you haven't been on the podcast before, I'd love for you to talk a few minutes just about like your history with film, and you have a few favorites for us that you can share. What would be the 2 or 3 that you would take to a desert island? Favorite movies?
That's a great question. I think my history with film is since I was a kid, I wanted to work in entertainment. So thankfully I have a job now where I can work in both film and television. And I think the more I think about like my favorite films, it would come down to three, and I think they show different aspects of my personality. The first would be The Sound of Music.
Okay.
I think it's perfect from start to finish. Julie Andrews is just a dream. The music is beautiful. The story is beautiful. Like it just hits me in so many emotional ways. So I've been watching it since I was a kid, so that probably elevates the whole like nostalgia factor for me. It just takes me back to a place that I love.
Yeah. Have you ever done that on a mountain, like twirled around like that?
I did actually. I did. I went to Austria back when I was 20, and I did the Sound of Music tour. And there's like a video of me just spinning in the mountain, like the little gay boy that I was.
That's awesome.
So the Sound of Music holds a very special place in my heart. And then to go completely different directions, I really like The Dark Knight. I've always liked.
Oh, okay.
I think Heath Ledger is perfect as the Joker. Christian Bale is probably my favorite Batman, and Christopher Nolan usually directs, up until recently, like a really good film.
You didn't like Tenet?
I couldn't tell you what Tenet was about. I saw Tenet in theaters. I couldn't hear it. It made no sense to me. Also, I don't know. I just, Christopher Nolan's been kind of on a downward slope with me, but I still love The Dark Knight. The Batman trilogy is great, and his earlier works are actually really good. Memento and what's the one with Hugh Jackman?
The Prestige.
The Prestige, I think, is excellent.
Oh yeah.
Oh, excellent. And then I guess for my third final favorite film would be Mean Girls. I just love I love the comedy. I think Tina Fey really captured like a moment in high school culture. I was probably the same age as those characters were when the film came out. So I was like, oh, this is just like what high school is like. Like it really is a jungle of horrificness some days. And you move past it. But
yeah. Mean Girls was perfect timing. That feels very much like an 2004 film. Like I think if that movie had come out 4 years earlier or 4 years later, it would not have been right. I don't know what it is about that. The timing of that was just right, especially with Lohan's career, and like where she was right after Freaky Friday. And Tina Fey, that was kind of her first big swing at movies, I want to say.
Yeah, right? I think right. I think she probably did a little bit, but you're right. That was her. And what a hit, because she continued to to parlay that momentum into 30 Rock and then Baby Mama and all that stuff. But what I love about Mean Girls too is the actresses at that time. Like Lindsay Lohan was obviously the biggest one. Rachel McAdams kind of took off.
Yeah,
was huge.
Breakthrough.
But now, like the biggest one is clearly Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah, she's the first Oscar nominee, right, of the cast. Oh no, Rachel McAdams got a nomination for Spotlight.
Yes, yeah, Rachel McAdams is excellent, but Amanda has really unpredictably because when I saw Mean Girls, I was like, okay, like I can see the other three succeeding, but Amanda like really was the dark horse that has really had a great career. Mamma Mia, Les Mis, Mank, so much.
Yeah. Her like she could have gone into obscurity if she had continued playing those kinds of roles and just repeating what she did in Mean Girls, but she's just been constantly like upping her game and taking on challenging material. I haven't seen her new show The Dropout, but it's supposed to be really good. And is it good? And she was phenomenal in Mank. I remember at the beginning of that award season, like there was talk that she might win, and then the movie kind of cooled. Like I wasn't super hot on the movie itself, but I loved her performance.
Well, do you like David Fincher films in general?
Yeah, David Fincher is one of my like 5 favorite living directors. So the fact that he hadn't made a movie in 6 years, I was like, okay, here we go. It's about Hollywood, and it didn't quite land for me, but I really loved her performance.
Yeah, I mean, she's not in it for very much, is she? I remember it was small screen time, not like small enough like Judi Dench and Shakespeare in Love, but like still small enough that like you're like, oh, she's here.
Yeah,
and she's gone.
Yeah, she makes an impression for sure. And then The Dark Knight, I just made a video about the new Batman. I just finally saw it. I've been traveling and I didn't get a chance. And I really enjoyed it. But as I talk about on my video, I'm like, The Dark Knight is like a perfect Batman film. And for me, it's like the quintessential summer blockbuster. When I think about that term, I think The Dark Knight '08. I just think that movie is stunning. So I feel like it's got to be hard for any director now to like make a Batman film that stands alongside The Dark Knight. It's just very, very hard to top that, Oh
yeah, but then you could say the same thing about the Tim Burton Batman films. Batman Returns is also quite the masterpiece in a completely different way. It doesn't. It feels very Tim Burton. And I don't think Tim Burton could ever direct a Batman movie today because superhero films are just so completely there's just a formula to them now, and that formula works, and they're not going to break it. And the new Batman is interesting. They really didn't let a lot of lights or laughter.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I love these modern takes that are ultra serious, but sometimes I'm like, we could loosen things up a little bit, right?
Yeah, just a little. Maybe crack a smile a little bit. Like maybe Zoe can, like have a little bit fun with the cat somewhere. Like, I don't know, just a little bit of a lightness.
I felt like by hour 3 of the Batman, as much as I loved it, I would have just loved a scene of Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, just like, maybe like dancing or something.
Yeah. Life can't be that dark all the time, Bruce. Like, fun a little bit.
Not that I want Batman and Robin ever to come back.
Well, Joel Schumacher, he really, leans into the camp. So it's iconic in a different way, but iconic nonetheless.
Well, I thought he captured both like the camp and the darkness well in Batman Forever from '95. I thought that had the right mix. I think Batman and Robin really leaned into the camp, and Schwarzenegger's performance is just a little too much, but it's fun.
So Uma Thurman's. I mean, it's
Uma Thurman's great.
It is a wild film. Those would never get made today the way that they were made. Wild.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think you can make a movie like Batman and Robin today. Like, I just don't think the audience is there for that kind of campy comic book movie. I don't know.
I feel like audiences are less, we lean less into the weird now. Like even a film like Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion or
25th Anniversary.
25th Anniversary. Where's
that? It came out at the end of April '97.
So we have to wait another 25 years to review the episode on.
Yeah, well, for a while I was doing bonus episodes where we would look at films hitting year 25, and life has just gotten too crazy. It's to do bonus episodes on top of the weekly regular episodes, but there's a lot of good films celebrating their 25th anniversary, and this year, I mean, Titanic's at the end of the year, and there's some big titles coming up. So,
wow, I feel all of a sudden cool.
Titanic is turning 25. That's just insane.
I remember now 25 years, like I remember the releases of those films and like where I was in life and everything. And it's fun, but 25 years, God.
I'm like, wait, how old does that make me now? Because I saw it when I was young with my mom, and I'm like, oh my God. So maybe it's not. I like talking about 50-year-old films because the 70s is my favorite decade of cinema, and there's so many movies from this decade I've never seen before. Whereas in '97, I was seeing like everything. So there wouldn't be a whole lot of discoveries I would find. That's why I picked 50 years ago. I definitely had not seen Hammersmith Is Out before.
No.
So two other reasons I picked this was Roger Ebert, the great Roger Ebert, gave it a very like a high rating and a very positive review on his website back in '70. Well, not on his website in '72, but it was later published on his website.
Trendsetter was Roger Ebert.
Back when Roger Ebert was on the web in '72, he was the first critic. He was up there. He was number 1 on Rotten Tomatoes back in '72.
He knew, websites would exist before they.
I am amazed that they were able to save like every Roger Ebert review going back to '67, like that they kept them in an archive long enough to get them all up on the site. I think it launched the year of his death in 2013, like every review he ever wrote. I'm always kind of amazed that they were able to save everything.
Somebody had good foresight. So
that's really cool. And this film is directed by 2-time Academy Award winner Peter Ustinov.
Yes, who worked with them before, who did the comedians with Liz and Richard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they did Faust before in the '60s. Like there's some things that all three of these actors did before that kind of lean into what they're doing in Hammersmith Is Out. But Peter Ustinov, I know of as an actor. I did not even know until researching this movie that, he directed like 8 movies. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Are you familiar with his career at all, Peter Ustinov?
Very little. I mean, I knew who he was, but no, I'd never actually. I didn't know he was a director either, but I had seen. I knew who he was. He's in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he was a director with an astonishing vision for his his films based on this one. I haven't seen the other one, so maybe one will surprise me down the road. But
I don't know. I mean, I think this one is smart. I feel like it had potential. I think you're right. He probably didn't have that much vision, but there's something there.
oh yeah, there's something there. I mean, I'm like talking visually too. Like visually, the movie, it's kind of flat, I thought, overall.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not Lawrence of Arabia by any means, but I mean, does it need to be super dynamic? Probably not.
Yeah, lots of big flashy shots all the way through.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he won for, I think the more famous win was what he was nominated, I want to say, even more than twice, but then he won for a couple like big epics of the early 60s. And most people know of him as an actor, but he was also a director. So I wanted to mention that up top here. So here's the just very brief synopsis of the movie from IMDb. The film tells of a mentally disturbed patient in a hospital run by a director of dubious sanity. The patient offers the innocent orderly vast riches if he'll help him escape. And then we've got this kind of like this adventure-like story where Elizabeth Taylor comes into it, and she's playing kind of like a ditzier version of her typical self, I would say. Like when you look at especially the films she made with Burton, this is like she's playing this one at a little bit higher level than, in terms of like kind of her nuttiness, which I enjoyed. I would say of everything this movie I enjoyed the most, it was Elizabeth Taylor. I just thought she was a lot of fun in this.
I think Elizabeth Taylor still has that she just has that it girl quality. Like when she's on the screen, like it's hard to almost focus on anybody else. And there's just that star, like when she's seen. And yeah, you're right, she's playing a very ditzy version of herself, but it works because it's comedic but light, and her wigs are crazy enough. Like, I mean, what was that?
Like she had some like the first half of the movie, she has a crazy hairdo, and she is like got the bronze tan like I've never seen before with Liz Taylor.
Yeah, it's very I mean, when the first time you see her in that diner, I was like, is this like a Hooters? Like there was just something very like you said, like tan and like South Florida, working at a Hooters, but like she couldn't get hired at Hooters, so she's working at this diner. But again,
yeah,
can't stop watching her. And what I love too is like while she's playing it kind of light and comedic, and then Richard Burton is playing so serious and like but yeah, still comedic but serious comedic, which I think is like a hard little tightrope to walk.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, we'll get into more of the specific scenes. I have a little bit of research about the movie here. So as we said up top, this is the 11th of 12 movies they did together. The first one was one of their most famous, of course, 1963's Cleopatra. Have you seen Cleopatra?
Yes.
All 4 hours?
Yes, but I think it took me like 4 weeks, to be honest. It was a different time. I think what I love about Cleopatra is the epicness of it, but also the backstory is just so fascinating. And the way the movie went over budget, and the affair that caused such a scandal, like that almost makes it better than the movie. And I think that makes the watching the film 60 years later now is you can't separate the two.
Yeah, in high school I had a 2-disc DVD of Cleopatra, and disc 2 was like a 2-hour documentary about the making of the movie, and that was by far more interesting than the movie itself.
Yes.
Like she almost died while making the movie. Like there's like all sorts of crazy stories, and then her just falling in love, them falling in love on the set. And the movie was supposed to be 2 3-hour films, and then they decided to cut it down to 4 hours and release it as one movie, and was the most expensive film ever made up to that point, almost bankrupted the studio. It's crazy.
But don't you feel like every movie back then was like 4 hours long?
I don't know. There's some long movies. I don't know there's many 4-hour long movies. I mean, you have Lawrence of Arabia, but that's like I think that was much more successful overall. Like, especially at the Oscars. Like, did Cleopatra, I don't think it did very well at the Oscars that year.
I'm sure it didn't. I mean, it's not a great film. I mean, she looks amazing.
Oh, she's gorgeous in Cleopatra.
Also, talk about a film that would never get made in 2022 with those actors, with 2 white actors in the
right.
Egyptians. That would just never happen. Although I hear they're remaking it with like Gadot or
Gal
Gadot.
Gadot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she's Israeli, so I wonder how
Is it
that.
Godot or Godot? I never know.
I've heard both. I want it to be Gadot, but I think it's Gadot.
Sandra Bullock at the Oscars a few years ago said Godot, and I always go by Sandra, so I'm going to go with Godot.
I think that's how I want to live my life too. If Sandra says it, that's the way we're gonna do it.
Sandra was, what was her joke at the Oscars a few years back? Like she was like, "Bring the light down, darker, darker, darker." Okay, now I'm basically the same as Gal Gadot, the much younger. But yeah, I don't know how you do Cleopatra today and have it be interesting. Like I feel like it would just be so much CGI. And I mean the title recognition is there. I think there'd be an audience for it, but theatrically, like I'm not sure.
It'd have to be really good.
It'd have to be really good. Like the performances would have to be stellar, great reviews, or it's gonna go to Hulu very quickly.
And this is fine, but
I haven't seen that Death on the Nile movie yet with Gal Gadot, but that didn't last in theaters very long.
no, I saw that it was on Hulu too, but I didn't make it through Murder on the Orient Express. I'm like, will I want to watch Death on the Nile, which actually here is kind of fun. So maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, I fell asleep in Murder on the Orient Express, and then I woke up to see like the twist ending that was happening on the train, and I went, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I like I since I saw the ending, I didn't feel like going back and watching what I missed." But
well, yeah, of course. I mean, once you know the twist, what's the point? But vibes.
That happens. Do you fall asleep in movies ever? Like it's happening to me more and more, and it's not good.
I can't think of the last. I can't. I mean, I don't know. I think the last movie I fell asleep through was this like terrible Four Christmases with like Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, I never saw that.
Oh, don't. I love Reese Witherspoon. A stellar cast, I remember, but I was like, no, I can't do it. And I think I also fell asleep through, God, what Christian Bale movie was it? It's probably like his Terminator, his short stint as the Terminator. I don't know how I fell asleep through the explosion, but
I forget that movie exists. That's right. Christian Bale was in a Terminator movie. The Terminator series is so messed up. You can't even follow like there's no logic anymore to like which movie follows what. It's like, is this a prequel? Is this what is it's so hard.
Yeah, I hold on to those first two films like tightly because they're so good.
You need.
It goes way off the rails.
Terminator 2 has such a perfect ending. Like you don't need anything after that anyway. So like it's all good. Yep. Probably the worst case of me falling asleep in a movie recently for this podcast was I did an episode on Tales from the Crypt, a horror film that came out in early 72. And I fell asleep at some point during the movie and I woke up and I thought what was on the screen was still part of the movie. And I didn't find out till later, till someone tweeted at me because I was so confused during the recording of the episode, was that I had fallen asleep long enough to where like the YouTube I was watching, it started another old 70s horror film. And it was like halfway through that movie when I woke up and I watched the rest of that movie thinking it was Tales from the Crypt.
I love that. I feel like there's another podcast like part one film on YouTube, fall asleep in the middle, see what YouTube decide to do next and see if it works, because it sounds like that YouTube algorithm kind of paired those two films together perfectly, so you're like, this could be
no, it was a follow-up film. So in 73 there was a horror film called Vault of Horror that was the same idea, I think even some of the same cast, same writer, producer, I know for sure, and it's had the same look, the same style, anthology 20-minute stories. And I thought I dozed off for 3 minutes and I was just like, oh, whoops. And then so I started talking to my guest about one of the segments I liked the best. And he was like, I don't remember that part. So that was kind of a disaster. It taught me to like, keep your head up, Brian. Don't fade off.
It happens to the best of us. We all sometimes just need a little snooze during a film.
Yeah, so Cleopatra was their first. That's the movie they fell in love. The final film they did together was in 73, a TV movie called Divorce His, Divorce Hers. That's kind of a weird final movie for them to do, because the following year in 74, they got divorced.
There you go. Sometimes you don't even need to write the jokes. They write themselves.
Like, that was not a good final title for them. No. And then they remarried in 75. And then they got divorced again in 76.
Yeah, see, it's a whirlwind. It must have been exhausting for both of them to be in that relationship.
I mean, that's crazy to me that you would be married from 64 to 74. You get divorced, and then you're remarried and re-divorced within the next 2 years. That's kind of insane.
I think that kind of happened with Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, where
Did
like
it?
whirlwind romance, got married, had 2 kids, got divorced, tried to get back together again like a year later, and then a year later we're like, we're done.
I mean, I guess I could understand if like maybe after they split up, they just suddenly like really missed each other over a few month period, and they said, let's give it one more try. I don't know if getting remarried was the right choice, but Taylor liked to marry people, so
She did. Sure did. Yeah, I remember I did like a Hollywood tour like with my parents when I first moved to Los Angeles, and I remember the tour bus was like, "Oh, and here's the church where Elizabeth Taylor got married at back in blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
And here's the other church that she got married at years later, blah blah blah. And then she got married again at this church again. So I was like, okay, that's what we're doing here. Must have been fun.
It's like the joke at the end of Wayne's World 2 when he goes to the wrong church. It's the one on the other side. That's where the woman's getting married. It's like she just got like every corner of the street.
Yeah.
Every corner of the intersection. One of the churches she got married in.
That's Elizabeth Taylor. Good for her.
So yeah, this is nearing the end of their relationship, I'd say. And as the films get increasingly the quality, I would say, goes down a little bit, at least from their two, obviously they're the two at the top, one in 63, the other in 66, which I think that second one we'll be talking about at the end of our episode here as just some of their best work ever. A few other pieces of research about the movie. This film was financed by John Crean. He was the founder of Fleetwood Enterprises, a producer of recreational vehicles. He was not in the movie industry. He told an interview that one day he decided to venture into motion pictures in search of some excitement in his life.
Happens every day.
And in his work. Boredom with business led me into movies, he said. Believe me, there is nothing boring about motion pictures.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like Jeff Bezos, like with Amazon, right, being like, okay, let's start Amazon Studios. Like, you never know. I mean, I get it. The movie pictures are movie pictures. The film industry is quite exciting. The movie pictures, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, if you watch like old like televised reviews of Siskel and Ebert, Gene Siskel always referred to movies as pictures, which I always find hilarious.
Very Gloria Swanson, like.
I did not. He'll say, I didn't really enjoy the picture, Roger.
I mean, that's what they were, pictures. I mean, they still are. They're just moving pictures. And,
yeah. I guess, yeah, really old fashioned would be moving pictures, right? That'd be more like you're in 1937.
Is it Gloria Swanson or in Sunset Boulevard that's like,
yeah,
it's the pictures that got smaller or whatever.
Yeah, that is my favorite film of all time. Have you seen Sunset Boulevard?
Of course.
Oh my gosh, that movie, that to me is the one perfect film where I would not change a frame. Like, it's just perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty,
even my favorite movies of all time, like there's like a scene I could cut, or like it's a little long here, I don't like that line. Sunset Boulevard is perfection.
There's a reason that it's stood the test of time, and it has cemented its place in film history, because it really is a great film that everyone should see.
Yeah, she says, I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
Thank you.
And his follow-up, no one remembers, is he says, I knew there was something wrong with them.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody remembers that except for you.
Yeah.
So.
That's such a weird case too. I read this really long biography about her, and like she tried to get film work after Sunset Boulevard, but it was hard because she played that role so well. It was hard for anyone to see her in any other kind of role. So that was kind of it. Like, she did a couple films after that, but like she was so good playing that, has been silent film actress. No one would hire her.
That makes me so sad, because
I know.
She probably could have done so much more.
Yeah, she was acting in things for another 20 years, but it was mostly on TV.
Oh, I mean, that happens to all the best actresses too. I mean, Joan Crawford too, who, won Oscars and then was relegated to like doing soap operas for a while at the end of her career, which at that time it was like the death knell was like doing soaps. So
yeah, TV is like back then, especially for like dramatic actresses in film, not what it is today, where pretty much anybody, as soon as Meryl Streep did season 2 of Big Little Lies, I said, okay, like anybody can do television now. Like there's no real difference anymore.
Well, there really isn't. It's just television is just longer movies, and
Exactly.
the quality
And
is great in both.
the quality is just insane today. And there's so much good stuff. I don't know about you, but I get overwhelmed like just trying to see a third of it out there. There's just so much great stuff. But yeah, Crawford was one of my first episodes of Film at 50. We talked about her last movie, Trog, from 1970, this terrible horror film that my guest and I just laughed the whole time talking about, trying to take it seriously as a story. And
but I mean, that makes me sad too. It's like your last film is Trog after your career. Also, like with Cameron Diaz, I'm like, please come back and make another movie, because your last film before retirement cannot be just the remake of Annie. You need to do something. Give me something else, because she just lights up the screen for me, Cameron.
That was so wild, because she was one of our most prolific actresses. She would just be, every year she was in something, and she was always making films. And then she had 3 movies in 2014. I want to say, what were the other 2? The Other Woman and Sex Tape, I want to say.
I think it was Bad Teacher. Did she do a movie called Sex Tape?
Yes, with Jason Segel. Did you see that?
Probably. I mean, if I did, it left my memory very quickly.
Like she was in 3 movies back to back in 2014 and then gone. And she just stepped away. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, she's such a great actress, but, you know, I worked in film here and there when I was younger, and it's a grind. And if you're not loving it, like I can see how you could one day just be like, I'm out. I'm going to go live a normal life.
Yes, I think I agree with you. Like, if you're not doing something that makes you happy, then you should step out. But at the same time, some of these stars, like their careers, like really impact people. Like if Mariah Carey decided, I don't want to sing anymore,
I'm done. Yeah.
I'd be devastated. So, like, yeah, you have it. Like Cameron Diaz is just like, she lights up the screen. I think she's so underrated as an actress, even in films like My Best Friend's Wedding, and obviously There's Something About Mary. Like she has just like a force behind her. I don't know, there's just something
no, you're right. Like, not that we have a sense of ownership, but just it makes us sad to think that someone that we really look up to and admire in cinema will just go away, never to be seen again. You know, thankfully she, like Cameron Diaz, is prevalent on social media. She's around all the time, like promoting her wine, and she does interviews, and it's not like she's just like disappeared in any way.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, like I'm hearing like 2 of my favorites, Jim Carrey and Sandra Bullock, just in the last few weeks have said, "Oh, I'm stepping away from films to do other things." And you kind of take it with a grain of salt, because Sandra Bullock has said that before, and then 3 years later she's in 2 films, and so it like usually they come back, but you never know. So like I'm watching The Lost City, and I'm like, this could be the last one.
Exactly.
Enjoy every second.
I was gonna say that. Like I watched that film too, and it was so good. I was like, if this is her last film for a while, I'm like, I'm okay with that. But I don't want to be her last film ever. Like she's such a prolific actress. She does always amazing work. So I don't want her to. I don't want any of them to go away either.
I know. Like my thing is, go away for 2 years. Do what you want. I'm like, every 3 years, give us something.
That's the rule. Let's make that the official law and go to Congress and say you cannot take breaks longer than 3 years.
I also want to see, I feel like Sandra Bullock is one of our very last remaining like A-list stars who's never done a series, who's never done a limited series, or I mean, she did a series before she was famous called Working Girl in the early 90s, but I'm talking like a Big Little Lies or a Ryan Murphy or something. Like to see her like sink her teeth into like a really juicy limited series role, the way Kate Winslet did in Mayor of Easttown. That's something that she's never done. I'm really hoping in the next decade we get that from her, because I think that would be amazing.
You're so right. I never thought of that. She probably is the last one, because even Julia Roberts has done a show.
Julia Roberts did Homecoming. Meryl Streep did Big Little Lies. I mean, is there a big A-lister who Jim Carrey did Kidding on Showtime?
Yep. No,
right.
Right. I mean, Nicole Kidman needs to start saying no to a few of these roles. I'm like, Nicole Kidman, do everything, girl. Like you can take a break. Like don't do everything.
That's a great point. That's the other side of it. I tweeted about that recently of like, is there a year where she's not in at least 4 projects?
Again, I love Nicole Kidman. I can watch her like act opposite a paper bag and be happy. But I'm like, not this role. Not this.
No, I'm usually happy to see her and stuff. I like that show she did with Hugh Grant. I always forget the title of that one.
Oh my God.
The Undoing.
Thank
Is that what it's
you.
called?
That was
And
great. And
yeah.
her Perfect Strangers one that came out last year, I was like, oh, Nicole, no.
Oh, I watched that. That was okay. I liked Melissa McCarthy on that show. Actually, I thought she did a good job.
Yeah,
But
Melissa was great, but Nicole's role is. I read the book too, and I was like,
oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I really liked the romance between McCarthy and Bobby Cannavale. Like that was really cool. Like those are two actors I never would have thought to pair together in like a romance way, and like it worked really well. That was my favorite part of that show. I just watched it about a month ago.
Yeah, Melissa probably has good chemistry with Bobby, and she has great chemistry with his wife too. What's her Rose Byrne?
Oh right, yeah, in Bridesmaids.
Yeah,
Interesting.
has something
I
like
didn't
that.
even put that together. That's a great point.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, back to our
Sorry.
movie today.
I apologize.
No. That's all me. I love this kind of banter because I don't know, all these people we're talking about mean so much to me, and we're talking. It's kind of an obscure film we're talking about today, so it's okay.
Okay, good.
If we were talking The Godfather, I'd be like, okay, we got to get back into.
I've actually never seen The Godfather.
Oh, have you never seen The Godfather? Yeah, I had a fantastic guest on a few weeks ago, Kenneth Turan, who used to be the film critic for the Los Angeles Times. He came on and we talked The Godfather, and he gave me 1 hour, and so there was no it was like Godfather every second.
We had about Cameron Diaz's disappearance from.
I was trying to get him to talk more about Sandra and Cameron and and Kate and Melissa, and he just was like, no, let's talk about Al Pacino. Yeah. I'm like, okay. We have to talk about Al and Marlon. We can go for it. Did you know this movie was shot completely in Mexico? And it was due to budgetary reasons.
Well, also because the Burtons had a villa in Puerto Vallarta, which is what I read in the Wikipedia article for this film.
Oh, okay. That would make sense. So they could just like go home every night to their villa?
Yeah, I mean, cost effective. Cost effective.
I think it means a lot to an actor, especially of their stature, like where they can just like go home at night rather than go to location somewhere where they don't have any of their common amenities that they know, like to have a place that they can call their own while making a movie. That's got to make a difference, right? Especially if you have kids or I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think Sandra Bullock said something about that on the press tour for The Lost City. She's like, I'm tired.
She brings her family.
Yeah, she brings her family, but it's still like not home. You're just displaced for a few. So, I mean, yeah, if you can shoot near your house and go home every day, then yeah, that's like going to a normal job that's having a schedule. So good for the Burtons.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this film probably could have been shot anywhere. It didn't need to be set in a specific like place in the United States or anything. So I think that worked for it just fine. This I read after I watched the film, and I found this interesting. I hadn't thought about it while I was watching it. It said Burton's characterization of Hammersmith has been considered somewhat of a precursor to Anthony Hopkins' characterization of Hannibal Lecter. Both characters are genius inmates who wear straitjackets. Both are psycho killers. Both stare with their eyes rolled to the top of their eyelids. Both escape from a psychiatric institution.
Yeah, I could. Now that you said that, I can see the line between the two characters perfectly. I think you're right. I think Hannibal Lecter definitely pulls a little bit from Hammersmith. Richard Burton plays him so eerily like he barely blinks. I'm not even sure if I saw him blink, but he has that like voice too that like is soothing yet frightening in the same way that Hannibal Lecter does. It's a soothing voice, but it's also a voice that will kill you.
Yeah. I mean, it's very different tonally. And I don't think that the author of the novels of Thomas Harris, who wrote Silence of the Lambs, I don't think he had written any of them in 72. So this would have been far before like Thomas Harris was even writing that character. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't really put the two together because, as I said, tonally, Hammersmith does not feel at all like Silence of the Lambs.
No.
So Burton wrote in his diary about the making of this movie. He said, "It's very wild and formless, but just the kind of thing I would love to do at the moment, particularly as it has a splendid part for Elizabeth too. And a film for both of us is what we've been looking for a long time." Why would he write that in his? They worked together 10 times before this.
Yeah, I was like, how long have you really been looking, sir? Like 3 months or like?
We haven't made a movie in 3 months. We need to find something new. And they were both, I mean, even at this time, maybe not Taylor as much. I feel like Burton was a little bit more prolific at this time, showing up in war films. And I want to say every year, like for a while, he was in at least 2 or 3 projects. He was working all the time. He wrote, Yusenov is to direct, so that should be all right. It should be it should be wildly funny and fun to do, especially with somebody as congenial as Yusenov and as brilliant as Taylor. This might be a big commercial success. I don't think it was.
It was definitely not a commercial success, to the point where what I've been reading too is like you can't even find this film on DVD. Like it just didn't really have a life outside of its release, other than like a small cult following. But I love the shade that Burton is throwing in there, and I'm sure you're going to talk about like the casting process, because Richard Burton threw a lot of shade in there as well.
Yeah, if you have anything to share. I don't know if I just have a couple things left here. So I guess Burton did not like the finished film because a rumor spread in the 80s that Burton tried to buy the original negative and destroy like the movie so it wouldn't exist.
Oh, I love
He did not succeed, because I found a link.
That's right. I love that. I mean, he came pretty close, to the point where I'm like, what is this film? So
yeah, I didn't actually look up to see it on Amazon. Can you purchase this movie in any way on Amazon? I don't think you can you?
I don't think you can either. It said it says
Hammersmith. It never came out on DVD. It must have had a VHS release, I'm assuming.
It was released in VHS in 1980, but to date it has not been released on DVD. Whip out those VHS players, people.
Yeah, but apparently he wanted to destroy it, but I believe he passed away in 84. So This would have been in the early 80s. I don't know if he ever got a I could just see him in the last year of his life, like, where's the Hammersmith negative?
I mean,
give it to me.
I understand when people hate their films, but he's actually not terrible. Like it's an okay film, and I think his performance actually is pretty great.
Yeah, no, he's great in it. And I am not I do not think once a film is produced and put out there, like, we should not be destroying the negative. It's like I was thinking about Citizen Kane, like they were trying to destroy that movie behind the scenes. Like there could be a world where that movie does not exist, which is really scary thought. So yeah, we don't want to do we don't want to destroy these negative.
I mean, there probably are a few films that were destroyed back in those days. Now today it would be kind of impossible to do something like that. But you're right. What if we had never had Citizen Kane or The Godfather or The Sound of Music?
Yeah, that's a whole other story. Like they were trying to fire Francis Ford Coppola from The Godfather. We talked about that on the episode. And I'm like, what if they had fired Coppola a weekend and they hired some other director? I don't think the movie would be what it is. It all worked out.
Are you going to watch the new Godfather series that's coming out on Paramount?
Yeah, that's coming. So this episode's dropping in early May. So I think it will have started airing by now, because I think we're recording this in early April. I think that is dropping in late April is it on Paramount Plus or
Plus? No.
Paramount Plus. Yeah. So I can't wait. I love series films about Hollywood history, and Godfather is one of my favorite films. So I'm very excited to see what they do with that. I think it'll be good.
Yes, I'm the same way. I love anything about the making of. That's why I liked. I can't remember the name of it right now. With Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball.
Being the Ricardos.
Being the Ricardos, I thought was fun, and also Feud, Betty versus Joan. I loved.
Oh my gosh, did I love Feud?
Yes.
That's my favorite thing that Ryan Murphy has ever done. Feud, Betty and Joan. I mean, even while recognizing that they're taking liberties, it's not all, I can't just believe every scene happened for real. But those are my two favorites, Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. And Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is one of my favorite movies of all time. And to see them recreate moments from that movie, and to see behind the scenes of how they got the cast together and the director, and like to be on set of that movie. And then learning, I think I might have heard about it before, but I didn't really until I watched the show remember, Joan Crawford was going to be in Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte. Yep. And then to go into, I mean, it was like 2 episodes of the series, like went into that production and how she was holding it. I mean, that was just like,
oh my God.
I ate up every second.
Me too. My mind was blown. I was like, what? They did a follow-up film? And then learning that she dropped out of the film, I was like, what? How could she do this? Like, we needed that follow-up. Like, it just...
You can see her in the movie. Did you know that? No, at the beginning, when Olivia de Havilland, when she pulls up in the car, when she's in the back seat, like there's a shot where you see through the window, and you don't see her face, but it's clearly Crawford, not de Havilland, because they didn't reshoot that.
I mean, I love the whole aspect of their rivalry too. Just the whole when at the Oscars when Joan
That episode.
the award, like it's just perfect. You're right. Like that is my favorite Ryan Murphy series, and they don't make feuds like that. I tell you.
And probably my favorite thing about that series was most people, when they think of Joan Crawford, they think of no wire hangers ever.
Yeah.
Like that's their go-to. Like this just incredible talent, decades of amazing film work. I looked at all of her films over the course of a year, a few years back, and it was just, I mean, she had some amazing performances I'd never seen before. And most people think of Joan Crawford, they think of Mommy Dearest with Faye Dunaway. And I thought that feud Betty and Joan was a reset, and Jessica Lange gave Joan Crawford her due as not just like she had her problems, and there's those scenes in the show, but Jessica Lange treated Joan Crawford like a three-dimensional human being in that show, and by the end it was just so sad to see her sitting in that room by herself and kind of everything's been lost. And I felt like we got a new reading on Joan Crawford that we hadn't seen before, and so I really enjoyed that about it.
No, I echo everything you're saying. It's I couldn't have said it better myself. I love everything that Jessica Lange did with the role.
Mm-hmm.
And about someone who would want to destroy a negative of a film. If Joan Crawford was alive when Mommy Dearest came out, she'd be like, no, this is not happening. Not on my. She would find the strength to.
Yeah, like she wasn't there to defend herself. Like she passed away, I believe, in '77, and Mommy Dearest came out in '81. So she wasn't there to like defend herself. And I enjoy Mommy Dearest on a different level. I'm not saying that's a terrible movie. Faye Dunaway does an amazing job. I just feel like that's what most people today think of when they think of Joan Crawford, and that's sad to me. She had so much more to offer, in her long career.
Betty Davis had a not a dissimilar, story with her children. Like, so
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where's that movie? That never, tarnished, Betty's legacy, but I think Mommy Dearest really tarnished Joan's legacy.
Yeah. But I tell people all the time, like, you don't need to go see everything Joan Crawford made. Just watch Mildred Pierce from 45.
Just watch Mildred Pierce.
Just one of the great movies of the 40s, and her best performance on film. Like, it's just an outstanding movie that holds up so well today. I just tell people, watch that movie. And then you will get a new appreciation for Joan Crawford.
Yep. And then same with Betty Davis. I'm like, you don't need to watch all hundreds of her films. Just watch All About Eve. Like, you'll be fine. Like, it is a masterpiece as well.
Yeah, I love All About Eve. I take issue with that movie a little bit because if that movie had come out in 49 or 51, Sunset Boulevard probably would have won a lot more Oscars. But because it was the same year as All About Eve and they are tonally very similar, they decided to make the winner of everything that year almost All About Eve. But such a brilliant film, and boy, could that guy write. Mankiewicz, boy. I think he won Best Screenplay and Best Director 2 years in a row. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, like to win both writing and directing 2 years in a row at the Oscars.
Yeah, but also to have that writing stand up, I don't know, 70 plus years later, like that's a feat, like in of itself. Yeah.
I did a year of Joan Crawford. I watched all of her films. This is the geek I am, John. And then the next year I watched all of Betty Davis's films. And then I ended the 2 years with a screening of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That was the last film I watched. And I watched everything. I adored A Stolen Life. So two other things about the movie I thought were interesting was that Elizabeth Taylor wanted Robert Redford to play the male lead. What do you think that would have looked like? Robert Redford in this movie.
Well, I read the same trivia, and then it was funny because Richard Burton wrote he didn't think that Robert Redford was a good actor. He said he didn't think he was dynamic, and that he wasn't surprised why it took him so long to become famous, and that Newman was better. I like Robert Redford. I can't imagine him playing that role, because what I love about Beau Bridges is that he plays it in a way that's like doofy enough yet a little bit menacing, but like I don't know, I can't see Robert Redford in that. I could see Dustin Hoffman in the Beau Bridges role, but I can't see Robert Redford.
Right.
Robert Redford's also too good looking and too charming. I think that it wouldn't have been believable to me.
It's something that must have hurt Redford a little bit because he's so handsome. I feel like he probably lost on some good roles in the 70s because he's just so good looking. Right?
What a problem to have.
Like he's He did fine. He's in another movie we're talking about this month on Film at 50. He's the star of The Candidate, which is a film I saw in high school in government class. I'm excited to watch that again. But yeah, I don't think he would have been appropriate for that role. I think Beau Bridges was at the stage of his career and has a certain look and charisma about him. I think he was much better suited for that role. I agree with you. And then yeah.
And Beau Bridges doesn't really pull focus from
yeah.
I mean, when I think he's a great foil, but like when he's in scenes with Richard Burton, I'm looking at Richard Burton. When he's in scenes with Elizabeth Taylor, I'm looking at Elizabeth Taylor.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Robert Redford would have been able to. I don't think they would have shared the focuses. I would have been like, oh, Robert Redford isn't like, I don't know. There's just Beau Bridges can fade into the background yet still be a star in that sense.
Do you think the movie would be available on DVD if Redford was in it?
I don't know. If Redford would be happy with his performance, who knows? He might want those negatives cut too.
I don't know. Are there any Redford movies that you can't find anywhere? I feel like you can find them all. He didn't make as many, I feel like, as like Taylor and Burton did in their long careers, but no. I love Robert Redford. He would have been interesting, but I do think they went the right direction with Bridges. And then lastly, the movie was selected to screen at the 22nd Berlin International Film Festival in 1972. It was nominated for 3 awards, including the Golden Bear for Best Film. The movie won 2 bears there, a Silver Bear for Best Actress for Elizabeth Taylor, and a Silver Bear for Outstanding Artistic Contribution for actor-director Peter Ustinov. That's it. It didn't get awarded anything else.
I'm shocked it got those awards. Because again, while I think it's a okay movie, I don't know if I like. Doesn't stand the test of time, I think, ultimately.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it has something to say. Like it's a pretty good satire, but
right.
I don't know. It's a Elizabeth Taylor for Best Actress in that. Like
yeah, so what are our thoughts on the movie overall? Like thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb sideways?
I think a thumb sideways, because like it shows that like I'm happy that it exists. I'm happy that it's part of the Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton
canon. Yeah.
Yes. But would I want to watch it again? Probably not. I don't think it. You're
not going to show it at parties and things.
No, because it's not camp enough that like you want to like show. Like it's not Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It's not Mommy Dearest. Like there's no. There's like a kookiness to it, but like the kookiness is on purpose. Like it's not like fun kookiness.
Right. I've been disappointed with the lack of campiness. So twice in my podcast, this Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor movie called Boom has come up. Have you heard of Boom? From 1968? And I remember at least one of my guests describing it as like camp to the hundreds. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. Stupid title, and it's a very slow, boring movie, like set mostly in like a villa on a mountainside of them talking in rooms. I'm like, what are these guys talking about?
Where's the camp?
It's like John Waters, one of his favorite movies, if not his favorite movie. And I watched it a few Saturdays ago in the morning, and I'm like, they're just like talking. There's nothing campy about this movie. So I feel like in some ways Hammersmith was campier than Boom.
Hammersmith is definitely like fairly campy. But I think what I meant to say earlier is I think it's campy on purpose almost. Like Mommy Dearest is great because it's not supposed to be camp.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So I feel like Hammersmith needed to lean into the comedy more or make it a more serious movie. It's kind of existing in this middle ground place that I struggled with. The pacing is very slow. Doesn't have the pacing or the tone of like a comedy, but I think it wants like Yusenov wants us to be laughing, and I don't know if it quite has the energy to pull it off. I don't know.
No, I agree. I think based on what Richard Burton wrote in his diary too, it sounds like he was signing up for a comedy. And this is like sometimes we want it to be comedic, sometimes it wants to be a little bit serious, sometimes it wants to be more of a satire. What I will say is I'm thankful that it's relatively short. It's only like 95 minutes, so it's not like the 4 hours of Cleopatra that we would have had to endure. But like it's a painless watch, I'll say. Like you're not.
Yeah, it goes by easy.
Exactly, and that's half the battle sometimes.
And this is the thing with me, even if I'm not into a movie, it's like there are some actors that just pull me through, and Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton are two of those actors for me. Like I could just watch them do anything. Even in Boom, which for me was really boring, just watching them act across from each other is interesting in and of itself, even if I'm not pulled into the narrative of that particular film. And that was the case here too. I loved her looks in this, her hair, like that her look on the boat is so strikingly gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'm like, Elizabeth Taylor, you had it going on.
Yeah, she did some good scenes. Like I actually love the first diner scene, but I love the scene at the end, spoiler alert, when he's in the wheelchair, and she's acting opposite Beau Bridges. Like,
yeah,
he does some good stuff there. Like there's some good work in there.
Good things come to those who wait, and that is what I felt about that scene too. I was like, there were some moments here and there that I smiled or okay. I felt like the movie comes alive in the last 10 minutes because I was laughing, I was enjoying myself when Elizabeth Taylor is putting her hand on her belly and saying, "This is Hammersmith's baby." Yep. And then the like surreal moments that come after, of like Beau Bridges in a wheelchair trying to escape this room where he's like a prisoner, and him like going after Elizabeth Taylor. What does he have, an axe?
I don't know. The quality also wasn't like great, so I was like, there's no like.
And then Burton talks to Bridges in the wheelchair like he's delivering Shakespeare and like a very serious like Shakespearean adaptation, and it's just like it's like it's taken so seriously in that moment that I just started laughing. It's just so weird.
That's why I think Richard Burton is one of the greats in that sense. Like, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose or not, but like it works. Also, he sounds so creepy when he's just looking at the camera. He's like, let me out. It's so creepy. Like, that's where I'm getting the Hannibal Lecter vibes from. But
I mean, I see what Taylor saw in him. I've always found Richard Burton, like there's like a sexy charisma about him, even into the like his films of the 70s, or something about him. Yeah. Like I could see what drew her to him in Cleopatra and on. Like there's something about him. And they just feel right together, like those two, even though they probably had, a crazy turbulent relationship. You can kind of see why they belonged together, at least for a while. I think she said at the end of her life that he was her great love, right? Richard Burton.
Sure. I think if you're blessed to have one of those like firework romances, then roll with it. But sometimes those romances aren't the best things for you personally. But that's a story for another day.
That's for my next podcast about romance. So I thought they were good in it. I thought Beau Bridges in some ways felt like he was in a different movie. Like it felt like at times he was doing like a slapstick comedy set in the 1930s. Yeah. And then Taylor's also playing it kind of camp, but not quite as like slapsticky. And then Richard Burton was playing it like he was in a drama.
Yeah, Burton definitely. I feel like Richard Burton's in a different movie, but like Elizabeth and Beau, like that, their first sex scene too. I was like, this is clearly a comedy.
Yeah,
like this is the whole diner scene when she enters. I was like, okay, I kind of know where I'm going with this. But then Richard Burton would throw it off for me.
Even when Burton is wearing the lobster chef uniform, like he's still playing it like straight reality. And then Yusenov is also in the movie. He's not in it very much. I didn't think we needed his voiceover. Like we get a lot of voiceover from Yusenov in the movie, and it's kind of like they were in editing and they were like, "Oh, this part doesn't make sense. Let's throw in some voiceover. I'm the director. I'm here anyway. Let's do it."
Or do you think that's just the director's ego of like director and actor ego of being like, I'm not in this enough. Let me insert myself a little bit more.
I love when directors do things and like directors who are known as actors and they direct a movie and they're not in it and you don't see them. And it's just like they're directing other people and they're not shoving themselves into a cameo. You know.
Eastwood is the one that comes to mind for. Well, actually, sometimes he directs himself too, so I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah, but I feel like if a really great comedic filmmaker had taken this on, I feel like it'd be a better movie. Like if it had been like a Mel Brooks or somebody who had a little bit more like comedic chops, I wonder if they could have gone even crazier and more slapstick or something that could have turned this into more campy entertainment. Because I feel like this middle ground, it doesn't succeed in either direction.
Yeah, no, I can see why. wasn't a commercial success and why it didn't help to revive their careers. I think at that early 70s.
Yeah. But I would recommend if anyone's interested in this movie, like stick it out to the end. Like the last 10 minutes, I think, are really great.
Yeah.
That's not a very high like recommendation for any movie, but it's not like it opens strong and then it just slowly, it's like it's okay for a while. It has things here and there. I like some of Taylor's lines. What did she Gracia? She says grassy ass.
That was one of the funniest things, like when her and Bo are talking about like the staff in whatever Mexican resort they were in. Like, that's not his name. Fun. It was funny.
Yeah. And you do get to hear Taylor say towards the end, "You monkey dick."
Watch it for that. If you watch it for no other reason, watch it for Elizabeth Taylor's monkey.
So, I mean, you can tell that Taylor especially is having fun. Like she's not sitting on the set like, oh, like she's enjoying herself and she's very flashy. And so that if you love Taylor and want to see everything, like I think it's worth a watch just for her in this movie. And I think Burton's always interesting as an actor, even when the material is a little bit lesser than. Anything else about the movie you wanted to talk about before we move to our final two segments?
No, I think we've said it all about Hammersmith is out. And Hammersmith is out.
Hammersmith is out of the building. Yeah, hard one to find. But what's really cool is that even when a movie is not on DVD and it's not on Amazon, if you search around, you can find it.
Sounds like you've been creeping on the dark web.
There has been one movie for the podcast in the last year and a half. I wanted to do an episode about Milos Forman's debut, Taking Off from 1971, and could not find it. Like it was not lingering in any back place in the dark web. It was just not there. And it's the film debut of Kathy Bates.
Oh.
And I'm like, I want to watch this. Milos Forman, who did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Amadeus and so many great films. And it was his first movie, and it was nominated for Golden Globes and nominated for stuff. It wasn't just like this little obscure movie. Could not find it anywhere. So if anyone can find Taking Off from 71, send me the link.
Yeah.
All right. So that takes us to our final two segments. The first one is the Divine Double Feature. That's where we pick a modern film to pair this with. What do you think of the last 20-ish years? Like what would you recommend to someone when Hammersmith ends and we're back in the insane asylum with Burton at the end? Like, where do we pick it up? What movie do we watch that's similar in tone or story, or another film with like a classic combo of actor actress who are together? Any like, what did you think about?
Well, this was a tough one because I was like racking my brain.
This is hard. This was maybe the hardest one since I started the podcast in 2020. I was like,
I also wasn't looking like 20 years back. I was like modern, like
modern, yeah.
So I was thinking maybe Don't Look Up, because
that's a good one.
It's a satire, and I think both films talk about like how we can be dazzled by fame and fortune, and then end up becoming the villain, and corporations are evil, which Hammersmith definitely makes that point. And Don't Look Up says the government is evil and like everyone's out for themselves, and I think that's the core message at both films, is everyone's out for themselves, and that's why Beau Bridges' character gets jaded by Hammersmith's promising him all these things, and that's what it is. So I don't know, satire. It's a stretch. It's all I got.
That'd be a long night of Hammersmith and Don't Look Up back to back. But that's a great idea. I didn't think of that. I couldn't really think of something because the story it's such non-specific that I couldn't like. So yeah, satire is a good direction to go in. I just went with A Quiet Place because I would say watch a more modern film that pairs a real life couple that's much stronger and that shows what that can do, how that can inform the relationship in the movie. So I just went with A Quiet Place, which is one of my favorite horror films of the last 5 years. I just love that movie. I've shown it to students, and I've shown it. I mean, I've screened it a couple times, and it just plays like bonkers, crazy well. And it's only 90 minutes.
Oh,
which is always good for the Divine Double Feature. Very nice. All right. So Beyond the Flick, our last segment, Liz Taylor and Richard Burton together on film. So you've seen Cleopatra, and have you seen their other biggie from '66?
Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf, perhaps?
One of the great films of the '60s in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is an acting masterclass for both of them. I haven't seen it now in maybe 15 years probably, but again, there's something about the two of them that when they're on the screen together or separate, it
Hmm.
just lights up. And I think Virginia Woolf, I mean, she won the Oscar for that role. Like it's
Yeah.
just incredible. It's just an incredible piece of movie making.
It's one of those films that everything worked out because obviously the play itself is genius. It's just one of the best plays ever written. And then you get Mike Nichols, famous from the stage, to direct his first movie. And then he announces the stars being Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. And there were a lot of like big
For sure.
eyes, like
Yeah.
Elizabeth Taylor, like I think she was what 35 years old playing. I mean,
Yeah.
how old is she in the play? At least in her 40s, right?
Yeah, but
So the most
she
beautiful woman on the face of the planet is going to play this like dowdy, like middle-aged,
and
overweight woman, and
it
she pulled
worked.
it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think about like bravery and how, Taylor and Burton were probably like a little bit like, and studios too. Like Cleopatra was a big overproduced bomb. And
Hmm.
so like we're gonna entrust these two with this amazing like piece of theater to translate onto the
Yeah,
screen. And it's like what you said, everything had to come together perfectly because if you're just looking at it on paper, it's like this isn't gonna work. She can't play this role.
yeah. And
And
I mean, I think it was a case of like they just wanted a big star for that movie because it wasn't a guaranteed box office success to do Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf on film. I think they wanted the higher ups. They wanted like some stars. They didn't want to just go with the actors who were playing the roles on stage. Kind of like how Julie Andrews ended up not doing My Fair Lady. They went with Audrey Hepburn, and it's happened many times before. A Streetcar Named Desire. Jessica Tandy was on stage, but they went with the bigger name, Vivian Lee, for the movie version. And so it makes sense they wanted stars, but I mean, I imagine there was some fear at the time, like Elizabeth Taylor is going to play this role, like that could be a disaster, and it's not. It's my favorite performance of hers. I love that she won an Academy Award a few years before for Butterfield 8, and many people thought that was an award because of her troubled personal life at that time and her health scare. That's about the period she just started shooting Cleopatra, and she got an illness and she almost died. And then the Oscars were just like a few months later, I want to say. And then she came, and many people thought she won her first Oscar for Butterfield 8, not for her performance or the movie, but for other things. So I'm
they
happy that she
that's
won a
about
second.
everything.
I'm happy she won a second Oscar for the performance. Like that is just another level. She is so good in Virginia Woolf.
So good. And to your point, like there's a lot of roles that people win Oscars for. They're like, oh, they didn't actually win for this role. Like they won
Yeah.
because like Sandra Bullock shouldn't have won for The Blind Side. She should have won for
Oh, I'm so
something
sick.
else.
I'm so sick of. I talk about Oscars all the time on Twitter, and that's a go-to. A lot of people are like, "Oh, who didn't deserve it was Sandra Bullock," and I'm like, "Shut your face."
Yeah. And she did deserve it for The Blind Side. She absolutely captures that moment. But I think to your
Yeah,
point, and like Elizabeth Taylor, like that was the best performance. Like you
yeah.
can't undeniably a great piece of acting. And she really chews it up.
Yeah, and I'm happy that they did 12 films together. They out of the 12, they have one masterpiece, one great work of art. So, and even if it's just 1 in 12, better than 0. Like if Cleopatra was like their legacy, but I love that in the middle of all these films they were making together, I think they had made 3 or 4 before Virginia Woolf. I mean, they were just perfectly cast there. Richard Burton was nominated for 7 Academy Awards in his career. He never won. The movie he should have won for was Virginia Woolf, I think. I just loved him in that.
I wonder who beat him that year, but
I'm
yeah.
trying to remember. I always forget. I think it's the Man for All Seasons guy. It's not a performance that I think has stood the test of time the way that Burton's has in Virginia Woolf, because he's just great in that. And one of the last major studio movies shot in black and white. I believe they shot Virginia Woolf in black and white because they didn't want Elizabeth Taylor to look. They had to like really do a lot of work to make her look unattractive.
It's the same thing with whatever happened to Baby Jane. Like they
Yeah,
had to do that in black and white because in color, they would have looked horrifying with their makeup.
Betty Davis's makeup and Baby Jane would have looked horrifying, as you say, in color, and the movie would not have worked. It had to be in black and white. Same way I think Psycho needed to be black and white. Some of these movies from the 60s, they needed to be black and white. And today, thankfully, we still get an occasional filmmaker to give us a black and white movie. I think there's such a beautiful look to black and white, and I wish more films were made that way. I really love it
when it's done right. And also for Virginia Woolf, like Mike Nichols, the fact that was his debut and he continued.
No, and then he makes The Graduate the next year.
And also, like, even up until Working Girl, I think is a masterpiece as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so, yeah.
Thank you for whoever decided to hire him.
I love Mike Nichols. Have you read Mark Harris has an amazing biography on him that came out early 2021. I think it's just called Mike Nichols: A Life, and it's like 700-800 pages. It's really long, and it is fascinating. Like, I savored every page. What a life that man led. Many people think of him as a film director mostly, but he was also a director on stage for his entire lifetime, starting when he was very young in his 20s. And very few filmmakers get quite a masterpiece as their debut the way Nichols did.
Sure.
I don't think almost nobody gets two masterpieces the way he got with Virginia Woolf and The Graduate 1 year apart from each other. That's kind of insane.
It's such a feat too, because to start off with such high success, like, you have to follow that up, and he definitely followed up. Also, he is kind of responsible for like putting Whoopi Goldberg on the map, like directing her like one woman show.
Right. Things that not everyone knows. Yeah, he kind of found he helped boost her career big time, and he was so good at casting the right people in his films and in his stage work all the way to the end of his life, and just an extraordinary figure. I'm excited to talk about him more on the podcast too. He's got a couple more films coming up here in the mid-70s.
Great.
All right, well, this has been so much fun, John, to talk Hammersmith Is Out, talk about Taylor and Burton with you today. As we wrap up here, do you have anything you'd like to promote, or if you can tell our listeners where they can find you online? That would be fantastic.
Sure. I mean, first of all, again, thank you for bringing on. This was a lot of fun. I'm sorry for all the tangents, but
they were fun. I enjoyed it.
Yes, they were fun tangents, and I hope your listeners also appreciate the wild ride that we took them on. But no, you can find me on Instagram, JohnRaphael12, and Twitter, I'm just at John Raphael. That's pretty much it. I have nothing to promote because I'm not a star.
Well, you should be, John. You should.
Well, thank you.
Well, thanks for being here, John. Thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And check out my new YouTube channel, Brian Rowe Video. If you like the Academy Awards, you're going to love Brian Rowe Video. Lots of deep dives into Oscar history, so check that out. Until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.